If Caitlin Clark is the quote-unquote savior, if she's the golden girl, milk it. Asia Wilson is a superstar in the NBA, in the WNBA. She's a two-time champion. This girl is legit. She's the real deal. And those kind of endorsements and all of that stuff ain't come her way.
You got me down again.
Is the WNBA's marketing strategy pushing the league toward a controversial path? The rising tension between Alyssa Thomas and Caitlin Clark has become more than just a rivalry on the court. This feud is revealing a potential bias within the league itself. Are WNBA veterans like Thomas being sidelined to make room for the new face of the league, Caitlin Clark? Let's dive into whether the WNBA is guilty of playing favorites with their stars. Caitlin Clark, the Indiana Fever's rookie sensation, has captured the attention of sports fans everywhere. From breaking records to leading her team to the playoffs, Clark has cemented herself as one of the biggest names in women's basketball. Her rise has been meteoric, and with her dominance on the court, she has become a marketing darling for the WNBA. However, not everyone is celebrating her stardom. Alyssa Thomas, a veteran player for the Connecticut Sun, has made headlines for calling out what she believes is favoritism within the league, particularly the way it promotes certain athletes over others. Thomas's frustrations reached a boiling point after a playoff loss, where instead of addressing her performance, she accused Clark's fans of being racially motivated in their support of the rookie.
You know, we come to play basketball for our job and it's fun, but we don't want to go to work every day and have social media blown up over things like that. It's uncalled for, and something needs to be done, whether it's, you know, them checking their fans or this league checking. There's no time for it anymore.
The rivalry between Clark and Thomas goes beyond the competition between two athletes. It's become a symbol of a larger issue within the WNBA, how the league chooses to promote its stars. The WNBA has long prided itself on diversity, inclusion, and equity, but some players and fans are questioning whether those values still hold when it comes to their marketing strategy. Clark's rapid rise to stardom, while well-earned, has left some wondering whether the WNBA is pushing her to the front at the expense of veteran players like Thomas. While Clark is undeniably talented, Thomas and other veteran stars like Angel Reese feel the league has been disproportionately focused on marketing Clark, a young white athlete, as the new face of the WNBA, while sidelining the contributions of black players who have long carried the league. Alyssa Thomas' frustration isn't just about race, it's also about recognition. Thomas is a two-time All-Star who has consistently been one of the league's best players. Despite her achievements, she feels overlooked, particularly when compared to the attention Clark has received. Her accusations of racism might have been a knee-jerk reaction, but they stem from a deeper critique of how the WNBA markets its players and who it chooses to promote as the face of the league. In a post-game interview, Thomas stated, "I've never experienced the kind of backlash from fans that I have this season," pointing fingers at Clark's supporters and implying that their treatment of her was racially motivated.
I think in my 11-year career, I've never experienced the racial comments from the Indiana Fever fan base. It's unacceptable, honestly. And yeah, there's no place for it. And we've been professional throughout the whole entire thing, but I've never been called the things that I've been called on social media, and there's no place for it.
While she didn't provide evidence of the alleged racism, her comments raised questions about whether the WNBA is truly committed to its message of equality or if it's more interested in boosting ratings with marketable stars. The WNBA has struggled with its marketability for years, and the arrival of Caitlin Clark has offered a unique opportunity to bring the league into the spotlight. Clark's popularity has spiked ratings, brought in new fans, and boosted attendance at games. But as the WNBA capitalizes on her marketability, it runs the risk of alienating longtime players who feel they're not getting the recognition they deserve. Thomas isn't the only one who feels sidelined. Players like Angel Reese have also expressed frustration that the league seems to be prioritizing certain athletes while ignoring others. The WNBA has always marketed itself as a progressive league, but the tension between Clark's meteoric rise and Thomas's frustrations highlight a contradiction. Can the league maintain its commitment to equity while promoting one player as the face of the WNBA? This growing divide between players could have long-term consequences for the WNBA. If veterans like Thomas and Reese feel that they're being unfairly overshadowed by younger stars like Clark, it could create friction within teams and among fans. In her post-game comments, Thomas didn't just criticize Clark's fans. She criticized the way the league as a whole has handled the promotion of its stars. The WNBA needs to strike a balance between marketing its new talent and giving credit to the players who have built the league. If it fails to do so, the accusations of favoritism will only grow louder. Thomas's comments might be the first crack in a deeper issue that the WNBA needs to address if it wants to maintain its integrity. Caitlin Clark's rise to fame has been nothing short of spectacular, but it has also placed her in a difficult position. While she hasn't actively sought to be the league's poster child, her success on the court and marketability on it have naturally drawn attention. Clark's ability to stay focused to her game, despite the controversies swirling around her, is commendable, but it also raises the question, is the WNBA placing too much pressure on a rookie to carry the league? Clark's quiet professionalism in the face of criticism has won her even more fans, but the WNBA needs to be cautious. By elevating her as the face of the league so early in her career, they risk creating a divide between her and her fellow players who feel they've been unfairly sidelined. The WNBA is at a critical point in its history. The rise of Caitlin Clark has brought new fans, increased ratings, and renewed interest in the league. But Alyssa Thomas's frustrations have exposed the potential bias in how the WNBA promotes its athletes. Is the league willing to sacrifice its values of diversity and equity for marketability? Or can it find a way to balance the two? As the WNBA continues to grow, it will need to navigate these challenges carefully. Players like Thomas and Reese deserve recognition for their contributions to the league, and fans deserve to see all of the WNBA's talent celebrated, not just one rising star. The rivalry between Alyssa Thomas and Caitlin Clark is more than just a personal feud. It's a reflection of deeper issues within the WNBA. As the league grapples with how to promote its players and maintain its values, it must ensure that all athletes feel valued and respected. If the WNBA fails to address these concerns, it risks alienating its players and dividing its fan base. The question now is, will the WNBA continue to play favorites, or will it find a way to balance the old guard with the new?
Those guys, they're the racists when really y'all are the racists.
You got me down again.
In the wake of Caitlin Clark's playoff exit, a new scandal is shaking up the WNBA. Alyssa Thomas has been suspended following accusations of a racially motivated assault on Clark during a heated playoff game. This incident has sparked widespread debate, not only over player safety, but also over deeper issues of race within the league. Thomas claims that racial abuse from Clark's fan base has contributed to the ongoing tension, but her actions during the game are raising even more eyebrows. Let's dive into the story. In a pivotal playoff matchup between the Indiana Fever and the Connecticut Sun, emotions were already running high. Clark, fresh off a historic rookie season, was looking to cement her place as one of the WNBA's biggest stars. Meanwhile, Alyssa Thomas, a veteran of the league, was eager to lead the Sun to victory. What should have been a competitive, hard-fought game turned controversial in an instant when a physical altercation broke out. During the game, Thomas was accused of a deliberate and aggressive move toward Clark, which many labeled as a racist assault. The action resulted in an immediate uproar among fans and analysts alike. The Fever were eliminated from the playoffs, but the real story emerging from the game was the alleged racial undertone of Thomas's actions. As details emerged, WNBA officials moved quickly, suspending Alyssa Thomas. The decision was met with mixed reactions from the public. Some praised the WNBA for taking a strong stand against any behavior that could be construed as racially motivated. Others questioned the severity of the punishment, suggesting it was a hasty decision made under public pressure without full evidence. What makes this story even more complicated is that Thomas didn't just face punishment on the court. During the post-game interview, Thomas did not shy away from addressing the issue. Instead of expressing regret or reflecting on her performance, she shifted the focus to the treatment she received from fans. According to Thomas, she had been subjected to racial abuse throughout the series, particularly from Clark's fan base, which she accused of being racist.
It's unacceptable, honestly. And yeah, there's no place for it. And we've been professional throughout the whole entire thing, but I've never been called the things that I've been called on social media, and there's no place for it. You know, we come to play basketball for our job and it's fun, but we don't want to go to work every day and have social media blown up over things like that. It's uncalled for, and something needs to be done, whether it's, you know, them checking their fans or this league checking. There's no time for it anymore.
Thomas's comments lit a firestorm in the media. In her post-game interview, she claimed that throughout her 11-year career, she had never experienced such racially charged abuse until this season. She directly pointed the finger at Clark's supporters, alleging that their admiration for the star player was laced with racial biases.
I think in my 11-year career, I've never experienced the racial comments from the Indiana Fever fan base.
Her words sparked a larger conversation about race and fandom in the WNBA. Fans and analysts alike were left wondering, is there a deeper racial tension brewing in the WNBA? Or was this simply a desperate deflection from a player trying to shift attention away from her playoff performance? This isn't the first time that Clark and Thomas have been at odds. Earlier in the season, during a regular season matchup, tensions boiled over between the two when Thomas set a hard screen that sent Clark to the floor. Though Thomas was penalized for the play, the incident added fuel to an already simmering rivalry. Clark, however, has largely stayed out of the fray. She has not responded directly to Thomas's claims or engaged in the controversy surrounding their previous encounters. Instead, she has focused on her game, letting her historic rookie season speak for itself. This has only further endeared her to her growing fan base, which includes a mix of traditional WNBA fans and newcomers drawn to her record-breaking performances. One of the most intriguing aspects of this story is the media's role in shaping public perception. Some sports pundits have accused the media of fanning the flames by amplifying Thomas's accusations without sufficient evidence.
Instagram and Twitter, these are choices we make. There's an easy way. The league doesn't have to get involved. The Indiana Fever don't have to do something to get you away from social media. Put your phone down. Don't download the apps. Don't engage.
Others argue that these conversations are long overdue, as they bring to light the challenges that Black athletes continue to face in a predominantly white-dominated fan culture. Critics of the media's handling of the situation point out that while Clark has received overwhelming praise and attention for her on-court accomplishments, there has been relatively little coverage of how race factors into her rising stardom.
Caitlin Clark is Kunta Clark. She's the actual slave that everybody else is exploiting for their benefit. Angel Reese included at the top of that list. Now Alyssa Thomas jumps in and says, let me get my piece.
This has led to further conversations about whether the WNBA, and by extension, its media partners, are doing enough to address the racial dynamics at play within the league. The suspension of Alyssa Thomas and the racial allegations have put the WNBA in a difficult position. The league must now address multiple issues: the integrity of the game, the safety of its players, and the deeper racial tensions that have been brought to the surface. With Clark out of the playoffs and Thomas suspended, the WNBA will need to navigate the fallout carefully to avoid alienating fans on either side of the debate. Moving forward, the league may need to reassess how it handles these types of incidents. Are suspensions enough, or should there be further investigations into the broader claims of racial abuse made by Thomas? And how can the WNBA foster a more inclusive environment for all its players and fans? While this story is still unfolding, it's clear that the rivalry between Caitlin Clark and Alyssa Thomas has become symbolic of larger issues within the WNBA. Their on-court clashes and off-court drama have exposed divisions within the fan base and raised questions about how race, gender, and power dynamics intersect in women's professional sports. Clark's rookie season may have ended on a sour note with the Fever's playoff exit, but her legacy is far from complete. As for Alyssa Thomas, her future in the league remains uncertain. Will she be able to recover from this scandal, or will this suspension mark a turning point in her career? Regardless of what happens next, the impact of this incident will be felt for years to come. Both Clark and Thomas are incredibly talented athletes who have helped to raise the profile of the WNBA. But as this situation proves, talent alone is not enough to navigate the complexities of fame, race, and public perception in today's world. The suspension of Alyssa Thomas for a racially charged altercation with Caitlin Clark is more than just a sports story. It's a cultural moment. It highlights the racial dynamics at play within the WNBA and forces fans and players alike to confront uncomfortable truths about fandom, privilege, and representation in women's sports. As the WNBA grapples with these issues, one thing is clear. This controversy is far from over. In the end, both Caitlin Clark and Alyssa Thomas will continue to play key roles in shaping the future of the WNBA. How the league handles their rivalry and the underlying tensions will be a defining moment not only for women's basketball, but for sports as a whole.
Connecticut Sun forward Alyssa Thomas and Indiana Fever coach Christy Sides both called for the abusive comments toward W players to stop during their respective post-game news conferences following Game 2 on Wednesday night. Thomas went as far as to ask the league to step in to do something about the behavior.
You got me down again.
When sports rivalries go beyond the court, they take on a life of their own. The ongoing tension between Alyssa Thomas and Caitlin Clark has become much more than a battle between two star players. It's a flashpoint for discussing race, identity, and the way the WNBA promotes its athletes. But are these conversations deepening the sport, or are they exposing a divide that runs deeper than basketball? Let's break it down. Alyssa Thomas and Caitlin Clark faced off in a highly anticipated playoff series. Clark, the rookie sensation from Iowa, had electrified the league with her dominant performances, and Thomas, a veteran of the WNBA, had built a reputation for toughness and grit. The clash was inevitable, and fans expected fireworks. In a hard-fought game, tensions boiled over when Thomas set a brutal screen on Clark, knocking her to the floor. The incident ignited a flurry of reactions. Clark, known for her resilience, bounced back up, but the fans didn't let it go. Soon, Thomas was facing backlash, accused of playing dirty and taking out her frustrations on the young star. But Thomas didn't take the criticism lightly. She flipped the narrative, claiming that much of the backlash wasn't just about her play, but rooted in something deeper: race.
I think in my 11-year career, I've never experienced the racial comments from the Indiana Fever fan base.
The rivalry between Thomas and Clark isn't just about basketball. It's a lens through which we can examine the complex intersections of race, fandom, and identity in the WNBA. Thomas's accusation that Clark's fans were racially motivated in their criticism opened up a conversation that has long been simmering under the surface of women's sports. Clark, a white player, has become the new face of the WNBA, while most of the league's players, including Thomas, are black. Some have argued that Clark's rapid rise to stardom has been fueled in part by her race, with the league and media placing her front and center as their next marketable superstar. The WNBA, historically focused on inclusion and diversity, suddenly finds itself in a challenging position. How do they promote their brightest new talent while ensuring that long-standing stars like Thomas and Angel Reese don't feel sidelined? Clark's emergence has been meteoric. Her dominance on the court and charisma off it have drawn comparisons to LeBron James and Stephen Curry. Fans are flocking to her games, and ratings are spiking. However, as her star rises, some players, like Thomas, feel the spotlight is being unfairly taken away from the veterans who have long carried the league. Thomas' complaints about racism may stem from more than just frustration over one game. It could represent a broader concern that the WNBA's emphasis on marketability is leaving behind its core values of equity and representation. During the heated playoff matchup, Thomas alleged that Clark's fans had subjected her to racial abuse.
It's unacceptable, honestly. And yeah, there's no place for it. And we've been professional throughout the whole entire thing, but I've never been called the things that I've been called on social media, and there's no place for it. You know, we come to play basketball for our job and it's fun, but we don't want to go to work every day and have social media blown up over things like that. It's uncalled for, and something needs to be done, whether it's, you know, them checking their fans or this league checking. There's no time for it anymore.
Whether these claims are true or not, they highlight a tension between the league's marketing strategy and the realities of race relations in the U.S. The question remains, is Clark being unfairly elevated because she fits a certain image, or is this simply the consequence of a new talent eclipsing the old guard? The WNBA has always prided itself on being a progressive league, pushing boundaries on social justice issues and championing diversity. But the rise of Caitlin Clark has created a marketing dilemma. The league desperately needs a star to capture mainstream attention and boost ratings, and Clark fits that bill. She's a phenomenal player with massive crossover appeal, attracting not just traditional WNBA fans, but casual viewers who might otherwise ignore women's basketball. But with this increased focus on Clark comes resentment. Players like Thomas and Reese, both incredibly talented in their own right, wonder why they're not receiving the same level of attention, despite their consistent performances and contributions to the league. The WNBA, in its bid to grow the sport, runs the risk of alienating some of its most important athletes by appearing to favor marketability over merit. Clark's rise is great for the WNBA in the short term. Ratings are up, more people are attending games, and her jersey sales are through the roof. But if her popularity continues to overshadow the contributions of veteran stars like Thomas, it could backfire. Thomas's racial claims could gain traction if other players start to feel the same way, that the league is willing to sideline its black athletes in favor of a new, marketable face. In her post-game comments, Thomas painted a picture of a league divided. "There's no place for racism in our sport," she said, "but it feels like sometimes the league is more interested in selling the next big thing than supporting its players." It's a delicate balance the WNBA must strike. How to market a white star in a predominantly black league without alienating the players who have built the WNBA into what it is today. Clark's talent is undeniable, but is the league doing enough to ensure all players feel valued and respected? As the rivalry between Thomas and Clark continues, it will be interesting to see how the WNBA handles these tensions. Will they continue to push Clark as the face of the league, or will they make a conscious effort to promote all of their stars equally? What's clear is that the dynamics between these players are far from resolved. Clark, for her part, has stayed relatively quiet on the matter, preferring to let her game do the talking. But as the league looks to the future, it will have to contend with these deeper issues of race and identity if it wants to avoid alienating both players and fans. The feud between Caitlin Clark and Alyssa Thomas is more than just a personal rivalry. It's a reflection of larger issues within the WNBA. As the league navigates this tricky terrain, it must find a way to promote its stars, tackle accusations of racial bias, and maintain its identity as a progressive force in sports. How they manage this could shape the future of women's basketball for years to come.